Ramble.
Welcome to Curious with Josh Peck. Start the show. Hi, everyone. My name is Josh Peck, and this is a Curious podcast, and you're the listener, and so that's great. This thing doesn't work without this agreement that you and I have entered into. You know what I mean? This is quite the dance the two of us do. Here, us, together, I, the host, the performer, you could say, the person in which who's delivering you this level of escape. Because that's all entertainment is, right? If it's worth anything, if there's any integrity to it, it offers an escape from people's lives, from the ups and downs, from the mundane even. Maybe there are no ups and downs. Maybe it's just painfully the same. And any sort of welcomed escape, be it a candy bar or a Netflix binge or a cute, adorable baby, child, son, daughter, or just some schmuck who podcasts once a week. We don't judge it. You know what I mean? Life is long. Seinfeld has a joke about that. He's like, if you remove the movies and the theme parks and the dinners, life is long. There's like a lot to it. And sometimes, at our best, we're just killing time. And so how we do that is completely up to us. And it really, for the most part, deserves no judgment, even though I like to judge. Because I tell myself, because I'm such like an insane podcast listener and consumer of, that as I listen to these things, because I listen to Joe Rogan or Mark Maron, usually they have people that are very smart on these shows, and I feel like I'm learning as I'm listening. So I feel like my hobby, my waster of time is of value. It's better than yours because you choose to binge watch Game of Thrones or whatever your indulgence is, and that is a waste of time in my mind. But you know what? Who am I to judge? What am I talking about? I've heard Game of Thrones is excellent. And yeah, I don't love fantasy, but whose problem is that? Only mine. You know what I mean? Nobody making Game of Thrones is tripping about it. They're just like, really? Because we're making the #1 television show, Josh Peck. So, sorry, if you're one of the few outliers who perhaps doesn't get it, good luck. Enjoy yourself, because we ain't worried about you. We're doing just fine over here in our fantasy, dragon-filled, hocus-pocus, magic-induced world. And God bless it. The fantasy, not for me. Superhero movies, not totally for me. But people love it. They love it. And if it's a form of escape and it gives them 2 hours of just feeling all right when they sit in that big cushy seat, maybe it's at one of those movie theaters with the lazy boys. Have you seen those? I mean, my wife is a huge fan. Basically, it's like a massive living room with you and 40 other strangers, and you're in these lazy boys, and it's just an extensive menu, and you've got blankets and popcorn and drinks. I don't love that setup, I gotta be honest. A, I fall asleep. B, those movie theaters tend to only have a specific type of movie, only the most popular of blockbusters, which usually aren't my thing. So I never really enjoy it. I like a traditional stadium seating movie theater, like I believe they did it in the 20s or the 30s. When were movie theaters really created? 20s, so it was silent film at that point, right? Did they have talkies then? Maybe. What's going on in the news? Kanye. I feel compelled to talk about Kanye. And this is not like a reflection or a diagnosis or some sort of commentary on who he is as a person, because I have no idea, but I'm just fucking bummed. I feel like I am in the majority of most Kanye fans, where it's just like, no, like, why you got to do us like this, Kanye? Why? Yeah, we loved you. We would have rode with you. We would have rode with you through like 5 bad albums. We would have had your back, because what you gave us in 2006, You acquired so much equity, so much goodwill with us, the people, that we would have seen you through this dark times. To when you reemerged, this hip hop unicorn, this hip hop phoenix, out of the ashes of your former self, and reinvented yourself in your mid 40s, which I know you could, because you got mentors like Hova, like the Jay-Z, and other incredible, talented artists who would have seen you through. You would have went to Rick Rubin's compound in Malibu. The two of you would have probably done like ayahuasca in a barrel sauna, and you would have emerged this new transcendent hip hop artist. And you'd probably have Bon Iver come and like sing the hook on some dope shit that would have been the banger bop of 2019. But no, you're fucking ruining it, Kanye. You're ruining all your goodwill with this thing that you're doing, and I don't know what it is, but I don't love it. And let me be clear. I don't care about the politics of it all, truly. Like, if Kanye took like a very educated, satient's the wrong word, but like very well thought out position as like the hip hop conservative, and was, brave enough to be like, I know that my view isn't probably on trend or what's typical of someone who makes the kind of music that I do, or is in sort of the runs in the group of people that I do, but regardless, I feel strongly about these things. I've thought them out, and I feel the need to share them with you, my fans, the people. If that was the case, bong, go for it, Kanye. I support you. Might not be my view, but I'd like to hear more about it because I trust you as an artist. So if you feel strongly about something, I would like to hear more about it. But no, it's not that. It's really not that. It's like this weird posturing, blind leading the blind, showing your iPhone passcode while you're sitting and bloviating with Donald Trump ad nauseum about nothing. And you're ruining it. I'm having a tough time listening to 2006 Kanye West at this point because all I can think about is 2018 Kanye. But what do I know? You know what I mean? Who am I to criticize? I don't mean to criticize because I would hate this if someone was doing this to me. If I had sort of like slightly a public deviation from the norm of how people saw me, and people felt the need to like publicly critique the way in which I was acting, I would feel bummed, and I would also think like, who the fuck are you to talk about me? So that being said, I felt compelled to say something, and now I feel compelled to self-correct and say, Kanye, you don't need my opinion. This is just love coming from still a fan, just not as big. I get older and I hope that people's opinions will matter to me less. But as it's revealed at 31, I still really quite care about what other people think. But maybe less than I used to. But I don't know. Today's podcast, Laird Hamilton. Professional badass. Like literally just a man whose level of bravery and courage and just willingness to put himself in harm's way is unlike anything I've ever seen. He's one of the greatest surfers to ever live. He's probably the greatest big wave surfer to ever live. But he's so much more than that. He is sort of a health and wellness aficionado. He is married to Gabby Reese, a former professional volleyball player and equal badass, who is constantly, the two of them together as a pair, they just, they continue to push the limit on like evolving yourself, making yourself a better person physically, mentally, emotionally. So I couldn't believe that I got to sit down with Laird like this. It was such an honor to go to his house and to be able to chop it up with him for an hour. And I really appreciate it. And I think you guys will enjoy it. So here's Laird. Enjoy. Well, thank you again for doing this.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I'm a huge,
No problem.
huge fan. All right, so, my first question is, I'm a big fan of Rick Rubin and Neil Strauss, and it seems like they're always here working out. I mean, you have like this sort of notorious compound to a certain extent, right?
It seems like it's turned into that.
Right.
I don't know if it's. It definitely wasn't on purpose. I think it just we kind of attract a certain. Well, we attract a certain people, but then we also, I think that when people come through here, that the experience that they have draws them back again, and it's kind of like going to your one friend's house that's always has a lot of fun going on, and you're kind of like you always want to go back there because every time you go there you have a lot of fun. So it's a little bit like that.
Right. Well, it seems in an interesting way like adult camp.
Adult camp.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that in a way, I think we wanna, that we wanna have fun. I mean, that's part of the thing, but it's also, I find it to be, in a way, our grown up community. When you're a kid, you have community because you have all your friends and you go do you have fun, and so I think we stop doing that sometimes when we get a little older. We kind of forget to have fun, or we forget to have community like that. I mean, and usually community when you're older is not always healthy. It can be like, hey, let's go get drunk at a bar. That's adult community, instead of, hey, let's go and adventure and play at a playground, or play sports or something like that. So I think it's it's a little bit more like grown up activities.
Right. Well, you're so right, because the prototypical man cave in quotes would be like a giant screen TV, whiskey, cigars, things that it's a nice escape.
Yeah.
But not necessarily going to make you better the next day.
No.
Right.
Well, and like I said, it's more like that's our adult manifestation of what we had when we were kids, when we were able to use sticks and rocks and have fun. It's like and it's a little. I think that that it's easy to misconfuse that it's because you feel like sometimes when you look at some of that adult behavior, you're kind of like, it's like, oh, we're getting away with something. Like we get to do this thing. It's like, the forbidden fruit, like where you get to drink whiskey and smoke cigars. This is like something that you didn't get to do when you were a kid.
Right.
And so it's like this novelty. But for me, I feel like, I just enjoy feeling good too much.
Right.
It's like I like to feel good, and and I think that there's a lot of us like that. That you find that there's a big percentage of people that enjoy kind of, I would say, nurturing the system. But I mean, hey, the one thing is around here is you got to work hard when you come. Like it's like, because there's gonna be other people working hard, and if you're not willing to, and working hard always doesn't directly correlate to like some sort of athletic event. It could be just a simple thing of just enduring some intense heat or dealing with an ice tub.
Right. And will you sort of, for the listeners who aren't as aware of sort of your compound and your approach to physical fitness and whatnot, will you take the people through sort of like what a workout like that will look like just on a regular day with you and some friends?
Well, we try to create as much diversity as possible. So I always want to keep it interesting. Take away the boredom, the monotony of and the drudgery of just the same exact activity. So we're always kind of creating hybrids and mixing things up. But, I definitely like unorthodox training. I mean, I have all this, I have all the foundational stuff of, of the lifting and weights and, and cardio machines and all that kind of stuff. And then we've developed these pool training techniques, and we do breath work, and we do heat and ice, and, we'll do a bunch of farmers carries with water buckets, and I mean we'll just so we'll kind of dabble between, but they always look a little different. We're always we're always just trying to shock the system a little bit through the unknown and maybe the combination of things. So we're gonna keep mobility in there and do some yoga on one of the days, and then we're gonna be in the pool and be trying to hold our breath, and we're gonna be lifting weights and doing burpees and riding stationary bikes in saunas and using ice tubs as one of the stations in a circuit. And I mean we're always just gonna. It's just you're never gonna get complacent and comfortable.
Well, I don't ever imagine you on an elliptical machine. Am I crazy?
I might throw in there for doing breath holding.
Okay.
So we might do some breath holding while we're on an elliptical machine. We might
love it.
We might do some hypoxia training. I have an elliptical machine that somebody gave us. A lot of times we get gifted some of this stuff, and so it's here. Somebody gave it to us, and my friends use it. But like I said, if if we're doing some hypoxia training, breath holding while you do the elliptical, it's a different experience.
I love it. You're allowed to do elliptical.
Yeah.
You just can't breathe while
That's
you're doing
right.
it. Solid.
Oh, intermittent breathing. You get to breathe sometimes.
Yeah, ish.
Yeah.
And could you equate people like Neil Strauss and Tim Ferriss, and I find that people that have come here to work out and are also attracted to the idea of continuing to better themselves, especially in 30s, 40s, 50s, which is easily forgotten in our society as people get older. What do you think that quality is? Is there one unique quality that's sort of in all those people and in you that seeking, that never satiated quality is? Could you equate it to something?
There's a couple of things that we all have in common, and one of them is that we never think we know, and so and I think that and then the other one is that enthusiasm that a child has, where you're just always trying to learn, and that's connected to not thinking and not accepting everything as that's the way you do it. Always maybe my friend says you're a contrarian, but in a way it's like there's a certain disobedience to it, like where you just don't accept things as a status quo, is like that's the only way you do it. No, there's 1,000 ways to do it. But I think the willingness to subject yourself to being a beginner, which is that same thing, which is connected to that youthful enthusiasm, that I don't know anything, but I want to learn. I think all of those are all kind of intertwined, and I think we all have that in common. I think we're all wanting to be students. I think we just come in, and if you're always a student, then you're always willing to learn, and you're always believing that you don't know something, and so there's pieces of that everybody has, and their own unique version, because everybody is different. We have a different approach at it, but yet at the same time we kind of arrive at the same spot because somehow we're connected that way.
You have such a strong resolve and deep passion and self-discipline and all these things that are so self-evident, and you see it in your wife Gabby as well. There's powerful people. How's your tolerance for people that perhaps don't have those qualities?
I think I'm part of having some of those qualities is burdensome, and sometimes you can look upon other people that don't maybe have that kind of drive or that just relentless pursuit of whatever it is you're going after, and you can envy them. You can be like, wow, that's kind of the old saying, ignorance is bliss. It's kind of like that's cool. Like wonder what it's like to not just be driven relentlessly towards the future, and at the same time it can be the other side of that, which is kind of like, first of all, I couldn't not be this way, and so seeing somebody that isn't, it can be foreign to me, to like not even and not envious, but also not judgmental. I think for me, I feel like I think we all have the ability to have these kind of pursuits and that kind of drive. I just don't think sometimes that we've all had the fortune to be able to be in a position to maybe pursue it in a way that it brings that out in us, or be exposed to something that, because I think it's a human condition. I think at the end of the day, I think there's a human thing. And that if you're lacking some of these things, it's just maybe because you just haven't had it, like, you haven't had the spark to light it. You haven't had the reason. It's like, somebody gets hurt or questions whether they're going to be able to do something, or has a, gets some sort of illness and like wonders if they're going to be around. They change their attitude a little bit sometimes. You see these people spin around and they start pursuing things a little more, aggressively. So, listen, it takes all kinds, and I think that there's always something to be learned from everyone.
Do you find that you need to, like, my wife always yells at me because a lot of my stuff was born out of, pain is a great motivator. And so it's forced me into having to look at certain things. I was 300 pounds at age 17, and I had to turn that around. And so sometimes I have a tough time reconciling when I feel as though others are not doing the best for themselves. And yet my wife will, God bless her, will say, like, it's not your business. Give them the dignity of their own experience and just be like a loving hand guide, but that's not always the easiest thing.
It's not. But I think it's important, because I don't approach it, in the Biggest Loser format. Right. That's not my style. There's a saying, you know not their burden. And so you don't know the burden of other people, and you don't know what they've been through. And so, or how they're feeling, or what's going on with them. So in a way, I think you have to approach it like, well, there's obviously a reason why people are in situations that they're in and feeling the way they're feeling. And so I think there's a certain level of compassion that you need, a certain level of sensitivity. But at the same time, I think it is your obligation as somebody who maybe has been blessed or exposed to certain things, or put in a position, or have a certain drive to kind of maybe help them discover their, that piece in them. And just deal with where they are, deal with, and not put okay, well, this is what I do, you should be doing that. Never that. It's always about, well, that's what you did or you can do, but what do you think you can do? And what's the possibility of what you're capable of? And I think that's more interesting for me as somebody who is fortunate to be able to kind of share with people and have people kind of look towards for some sort of, whether it's motivation or the creativity or just even a blueprint of a lifestyle. Like, hey, how does that looks interesting. I'm interested in that. And so I feel like, that's a nice position to be in. You have to be responsible for that, but at the same time, it's a good position because you are able to kind of have influence in a constructive way, which, there's so many people in these situations that have influence that are so destructive and leading, people so far away that I think it's, we call it the selfish act of giving, but you get to see the results of, of these things that you share with people. And it's pretty incredible. Sometimes you see the transformation in people and you're like, that is awesome, like that. And that drives you, that gets you going when maybe you're, at a low spot in your biorhythm. Because listen, at a certain point, it's like, I think we all, get tired and we all get unmotivated at times, no matter who we are. And that's why community is so important.
Got another ad for you, and it goes a little something like this. RX Bar. What about them? What's so great, Josh, you ask? Let me tell you, RX Bar wants to build things the right way. They believe in the power of transparency and let the core ingredients do all the talking. With all of them listed on the front of the packaging, you know what I'm talking about. I see those RX bars in my local supermarket, my local, little food grocery place, and I see them, and I see those egg whites, and I see the dates and the almonds and or cashews or various other ingredients that are involved, and I go, I know all those things, and those don't scare me at all. In fact, those are some of my favorite things, and they're all in one bar. Yes, please. Okay? RX bars uses real food ingredients that actually taste really good. They're gluten-free, soy-free, dairy-free, and it's great for breakfast on the go, a snack at the office, throw it on your, I don't know, on your desk and have it in the middle of the day when you want to take a nap, but you need a little something. It's great for a pre or post workout. They come in 14 delicious flavors: mango pineapple, chocolate hazelnut, peanut butter, and berries. There's so many. And now RX Bar has debuted an RX Nut Butter, which contains a few simple and similar ingredients like egg whites, fruits, and nuts. I'm a big fan. And so for 25% off your first order, visit rxbar.com/curious and enter promo code CURIOUS at checkout. That's 25% off your first order. Visit rxbar.com/curious, enter promo code CURIOUS. Well, I think for people like you and for me as well that have, been overpaid and had such an incredible life experience. It was born out of challenge and hard work and what have you. But, sometimes people work hard and have challenge and never get what we've gotten. And I find the one true sort of thing that goes through all of this is the idea of giving it away, because if you hoard it and you hold on to it, it will expire, it will spoil like most things. And as quickly as it comes in, it goes back out. Well, not to give an ocean reference,
but that's in a way that's the governing law of the universe. I mean, it's if you don't keep the window open, it can't, and it's not going out, it can't come in. You have to make room for the next thing that's coming in, and you can there's scripture.
No worries.
Sorry. There's scripture that gives you the give 7, get 7 times 7. I mean, it's like, you don't, you don't give to get, but, that's why I talk about the selfish act of giving. You give to give, because in a way that's the most, that's the most, I think that's the highest level of evolution. I think at a certain point when you evolve to the highest level, that's about giving. Because whenever you see people that have been striving to get the most, they arrive at this place where they have the most, and then they're the most unhappy. And then they're like, wow, I thought if I got all this stuff that it was going to make me happy. And then they just realize, well, no, you have to give it. And then that's where you get a lot of contentment and a lot of happiness from is the giving. And the giving, it doesn't have to be monetary. It can be of your time. It can be of your knowledge. I mean, it's still, but in order to keep that system working, there has to be an ebb and a flow. There has to be movement. There has to be, so, if you hold and protect, and I don't care if it's your knowledge, if you take knowledge and hold and protect, then you can't get new knowledge.
Right.
But if you just are comfortable that you're going to learn more and that there's always more to know, then you're not even thinking about retaining and protecting. That's usually out of insecurity. So when people lock down and hold, it comes more out of a lack of faith and a lack of believing that, you will be provided for, or there's more to learn, or whatever that looks like.
All right, but I want the real deal. When you're in a workout with one of your homies, and they're dragging ass, what are you saying? Are you telling them like, get it together, you wimp? Like, let's go.
Well, we lead by example.
Solid.
So we have down days, and maybe you don't have to because one of the other guys will.
Solid.
So we distribute the punishment. We distribute the doling out of the punishment evenly. So, you could hear it. But yeah, I think it's a natural thing to taunt each other. I think that's very, very healthy and poke people and at the same time be sensitive to like, hey, maybe the guy's hurt or really not. It's not his day, but But we also design stuff so there's really nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. You
Right.
can't you're not going to be able to get away. You're going to have to get in that ice bucket, and there's going to be a clock, and we're going to be watching. And if you stop early, or you don't do the heat, or you don't, do the reps, we're gonna. Hey, that was only 8 reps. Hey, that was only 9 reps. Or what do you use in the children's weight? I mean, there's always But I think a lot of that taunting that happens that's super constructive, and in a way it's encouragement. I mean, it's and the people that don't take it like it's encouragement, they usually don't come back.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
God, I mean, I cheat some reps. And I remember when I was really into CrossFit, but I tore my pec bench pressing, and I was like, all right, maybe I need to slow down on this. But I remember one of the coaches being like, how you do this is how you do everything. So if you cheat a rep, you're cheating somewhere else in your life. And I was like,
well, you can only cheat yourself.
Right.
By the way.
Right.
And you're only cheating yourself. But that's just I think it's important, even, I think it's not, they say that the average man lies twice a day and the average woman lies twice a day, and women lie to make other people look better and men lie to make themselves look better. Right. But you just, you can say, oh, I was in there for 10 minutes and you were in there for 9 minutes. Or you can say I did 50 reps and you did 48 reps or whatever. And I think it just, as a good habit for your own well-being, just get used to, and if anything, downplay it. Be like, oh, I only did 47 reps,
Right.
Even though you did 48. Try the reverse of it, and it actually is kind of, in a way, you feel a certain relief from that. There's a certain, because then you feel like you're not living up to something. You feel like you're actually downplaying. I think that goes back to humility, and I think that's important to keep, because there's always another rep. There's always somebody else who's doing more reps. There's always, and I think in our environment, one of the things that people like too is that we don't, we always say leave your ego at the door. That it's not about you out repping the other rep and or whatever the guy did, you do more. We try to take some of that competitive aspect of the training out of it and give it more about you being more about with yourself. And my mom said once, if you can't be true to yourself, you can't be true to anyone else. But in a way, listen to yourself, work hard when you can, work hard when you can. It's like, because you're your own most critical. I mean, nothing I can tell the guys, they're not putting on themselves harder.
Yeah, no one's ever shit talked me like myself.
I promise.
100%.
Because only you know you at
Right.
the end. So you know how to talk yourself down better than anybody that could ever do it. Because you know what you're feeling or what you've done or haven't done or said or haven't said.
If anyone talked to me the way I talk to myself, I'd never talk to them again. We wouldn't be friends anymore.
For sure.
Right.
Exactly.
Is there something you notice in people that is sort of like an insidious trait, something that you feel is the great blocker of people in this day and age that's stopping them from their potential and keeping them from growing and learning and not sort of achieving some of the things that you and people that you're close with have?
I think that probably one of the biggest traits that people have that holds them back is it manifests itself in a lot of different ways, but I think that people are scared to be vulnerable.
Right.
To be vulnerable and to be perceived as being weak. I think that's and in so doing they strike out in aggression and frustration and some of these other things. A lot of the behavioral things that people do are based on that, and I think especially men, because of the nature of, I'm a man, I'm tough, I'm strong, I'm this, I'm that, and in a way, in the book Natural Born Heroes, one of the things they talk about is, to be heroic, you have to be compassionate, and I'm like, yeah, exactly. That means humble. That means sensitive. That means vulnerable. These are things that are so that we don't connect to being masculine. We connect strong and aggressive and blah 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 and all these other things. But to balance that scale, I think that's and being a beginner, being I think being a beginner, I think people really, they don't like to be embarrassed in front of, they want to just stick with what they're good at and be in that lane and not be a beginner. And I think that, and again, being sensitive and fearful and all that stuff is connected to not wanting to be a beginner, because there's a certain, sensitivity to being a beginner. There's a certain vulnerability. Like, hey, I don't, it means you have to say, I don't know how to do it. And you definitely don't, because you don't know how. And so you have to subject yourself to that process. And I think as we get older, we get, more and more that way. As I think our willingness to try to do new things just diminishes.
And do you think that, to what you were talking about before, the idea of giving it away and how it's afforded you this sort of reprieve from self, right? And it's giving. I find for myself the only way that I kind of feel at peace is the idea of giving it away. And before that, when you were chasing, a bigger wave every time, was there a moment where you sort of realized you were like, this isn't going to suffice? Like, if it's over 100 feet one day, no matter what, like, this thing, while it's a huge part of me and I love this and this is my life, I'm trying to fill a hole that can't be filled with this. Did you ever have a moment like that?
Well,
not to get too deep.
Well, yeah, no, but the fact is that I think one of the great kind of blessings that I have, one of the fortunes that I have, is that I have the ocean as a teacher, and you learn quickly that it'll never be enough. There'll never be a big enough one. There'll always be a bigger one. There'll be a void in the pursuit of trying to ride the biggest wave that will always be there, because there'll always be a bigger wave that you didn't get, that it does exist. And in your head, there's bigger waves than you have ever seen and that you'll ever know of. So there'll always be this thing that's unquenchable. There'll be this you'll never be able to. And so you have to, at a certain point, you have to, in the pursuit of this thing, this moment, this whatever it is that you're pursuing to fill that void with, that there will be no end to it. And then you have to spin and go back inside,
right,
to yourself. And try to find it within you, and that's actually where it is. I always I laugh about the alchemist, but you search the world for the treasure, and only to find it was in your backyard. Right. And in a way, the treasure's in your backyard. Like the substance to fill the void that you have is inside of you. And once you can do that, once you can find that, it doesn't mean you still don't have the residual effects of the pursuit of greatness. Those will always exist at some point. There will always be some fragments of that are part of you. I think it's part of being human. I think that's a part of our DNA. It's our biology. Some of this stuff's our biology, and you're not gonna erase biology. You're not gonna avoid biology. I mean, this is what we are, who we are. And so, but when you can spin it and come back and then take control of it and learn how to fill that void with your own contentment, then you can actually make the big wave have fulfillment. Then it can actually be useful in giving you something. But if you're looking for it to bring it to you, you have it, and then you can use that to help what you have already.
And do you see that in certain guys that are chasing that thing, and maybe it's, a big wave surfer, or in many different facets of life where you're just
money,
yeah.
Chasing money. I mean, that's the biggest way. That's the biggest wave for the human race. I have big waves, so money's a tool, and you use it and you need to eat and get things and all that. But that was never the I was fortunate that I had the wave. So, you know, and but money, and the pursuit of the emptiness of that. I mean, I have, you know, you see it all. I mean, I run across it all the time. The people that are in pursuit of their 100-foot money, and they have emptiness and they're unhappy, and it's like, and it's bummer for them, like
Right.
bummer, like, you know, that it can't, and because it never could fill that void, because that's not, you know, that's never going to be filled with that, right? Again, it comes back into you.
I remember, yeah, similarly, like being really heavy my whole life, and obviously overindulging in something was like a form of numbing out and narcotizing that inner voice. And then I got in shape, and I remember sort of a moment of clarity for me was I had this huge movie that I was starring in with my favorite actor at the Sundance Film Festival, and we had just won. And I was just miserable and I'm like just pitiful, 21 years old. And it confirmed a suspicion that I had had my whole life, which was that be it food or drugs and alcohol or prestige or women or what have you, like nothing was going to fill up this thing.
Yep.
And that,
Except maybe real love.
yeah, that
Real
helps.
love, like real love,
Yes.
like real commitment in a relationship with somebody who you respect. That, I mean, that can help. That's one of the pieces of that. I think you fill the hole with a pie.
Right.
And the pie has slivers, and one of them's that, and then the other one's you being truthful to yourself, and then another one's you being a good friend to your thing, and then another one's you being generous, and you know. So there's, I mean, you know, and some of them are as simple as you taking care of yourself and sleeping well and eating good, and, you know, and working out, and then, you know, so there's all these slivers that you have to fill. That's part of the thing too, is that there's no one thing. You're not going to just go and, you know, dig a hole and find a rock that's going to fill that hole. Like, these are slivers, and you got to figure out which slivers are going to, you know, that you can put together to fill that void. And it's there's quite a few of them, you know.
Speaking of pie, do you ever eat cheat meals?
Once in a while I'll do. I mean, I was just in Europe, and we had a, you know, I mean, when in Rome, do as a Roman. So I was in Italy, and I had some beautiful pasta. But I mean, I can count the pasta meals I've had this, you know, in the last year on one hand. But it's not, wow. You know, listen, people go, oh, you have such discipline. I go, actually, you only crave what you feed. So in a way, I don't eat a lot of those foods, and I haven't for a long time. So I don't really have the cravings. It's not like I see a giant ice cream sundae, and I'm like, man, I really want that. It's like, I look at it, I go, I don't want it. I already know what it's going to make me feel like. It's going to be good for about 1 second on my tongue, and then as soon as it goes down my throat, I'm going to feel like clogged, and I'm like, I don't. So in a way, I think that's the part of the misconception, because people can't understand what it would feel like to not crave that food, because they've never not eaten it long enough to not crave it. So they're like, wow, discipline, like, because coming from where they're feeling. But if they were feeling like how I was feeling, they'd be like, oh yeah, you don't even care. Bread, you just don't even, you're not even interested. Like, that's not even a, you know, I mean, listen, I have my things. I like my coffee, and you know, and so I get it there, and but listen, you crave what you feed. So if you're eating a ton of sugar all the time, then anything sweet, you look at it, you go, I want that.
Right.
You know, where if you don't eat sugar all the time, you're kind of like, first of all, when there is sugar, you're like, wow, that's sweet. That's too sweet. And you just don't have the same urges that you know, that you do when you're consuming that kind of stuff.
I always hear healthy people say stuff like that, and I wonder what it would feel like to eat something and be like, too sweet.
Oh yeah, it happens.
I'm sure.
Believe
I've
me,
heard it.
It doesn't take that long. You go off of that. You stay away from that refined sugar for a little while. You'd be surprised how quick you can just taste it everywhere. It's in every salad dressing and everything. It's like, stuff is so sweet. It's crazy. You're like, but it's not. It was never sweet when you're eating sweet, but it's only sweet when you're not eating sweet. So
I believe it coming from you.
Yeah.
I have a harder time from people that have been like paleo for 4 days.
Yeah,
and they're
yeah,
like,
yeah.
bro, a
Yeah.
strawberry
Oh,
tastes.
yeah.
And I'm like, shut up.
Yeah.
Like, you've been doing this for 4 days, and you've eaten like a slab of bacon every morning. I don't believe you.
No, it's true.
What's a normal eating day look like for you? What are your staples?
Well, again, it depends. I mean, I eat a lot of fat, so I mean, I eat and I like raw dairy, like raw butter, raw cream, like that kind of stuff. I usually eat 2 meals a day, and
Is that intentional, like intermittent
I'm just
fasting?
not that hungry in the morning because I start with a bunch of fat. I use and I drink coffee with the fat.
Like a bulletproof type.
Yeah,
Okay.
coconut oil, raw butter, a bunch of fats in there, and you know, and so I mean, we were eating. What's interesting is we were drinking espresso with like heavy cream 25 years ago, and I mean, listen, we've been using cream in coffee for as long as it's been around because of the relationship, but of the caffeine and the fat. But I find that I train better and I like to be on an empty stomach. So I don't. So and empty means I mean I'll just have some liquid, espresso and some. I mean I drink a bunch of water. I try to hydrate myself well, and then plants and animals like and not a ton of fruit. Even though I'm not against fruit, I just don't eat a ton of fruit. Try to eat fruit from the local, seasonal kind of stuff. Try to eat raw, try to eat wild proteins and stuff. I'll go for 3 or 4 days just vegetarian. I'll just eat only vegetable for 3 or 4 days, and then I'll just be like, okay, I'm gonna eat, I'll eat bacon and a bunch of. I like exotic sausage, like something that just that real. I mean, listen, I just try to eat real food that has nutrient density, stuff that's powerful, and I think my approach is more like food is fuel, and so everything I'm looking for it to do something for me, not for it to taste good. Like the fact is, you can eat things that taste great that are good for you. But I'm eating fish roe and I eat fertile eggs, and I look for stuff that has potency, that has power, like that has energy. And I'll probably do a bunch of juicing. I'll juice kale and celery and some other stuff, and then I avoid most grain, most grains, and I like mac nuts and other kinds of. My friend has a nut from Brazil called a baru nut, and I'll eat almond butter, and I mean, like I said, I just like, I like real stuff and very little, and I try to avoid any refined sugar that I can. I mean, the most refined sugar I have is in some of my my Laird superfood creamers have some coconut sugar in them, which they're high in minerals as well. So, and they're low on the glycemic index, and they're from a coconut tree. It's like coconut trees. It's hard to mess up a coconut tree. It's not some overgrown crop that's coming from leached out soil. So I just try to be conscious. And then variety. I think having a diverse variety, not getting stuck in this routine where you just eat the same stuff every day all the time. I mean, the only real routine I have in my diet is my coffee stuff, just because of that. Like I said, the raw butter, the coconut, the red palm, those oils.
Why raw?
Well, the dairy I like
dairy.
raw because of the enzymes, because it hasn't been killed. You haven't cooked it, and so if you look at all the good French cheese, it's all raw. If you look at what's in raw dairy, it's got enzymes. It's alive. It hasn't been killed, and I think the more alive your food is, the better. I think it's important for your food to have power.
Is that black market dairy? Can you get?
You can get
unpasteurized?
you can get it. You can get it. It's I think that, and I'm not sure, but there's certain dairy products that they're able to kind of get.
Right.
There's certain and there's a couple. It's hard to find. It's like I mean, I have friends that we get stuff shipped from the Amish. I mean, we're like, and if I can get, I know somebody's going to go. He's going to go hunt an elk, and we're going to get all the organs, and we're going to get a bunch of meat from the elk, and we're going to have that in the freezer. And my friends catch giant tuna, and we're going to try to get. I mean, when we can, we do that. I mean, listen, we still have to. we live in the modern world. It's not just like we can go hunting out of the backyard. It's like, and the fact is that, eating well is expensive. In my opinion, there's a lot of places to spend money. People will buy fancy jewelry, fancy clothes, fancy shoes. They'll hang in their closet and then they'll eat like crap. It's like, I'm like, I think you got a priority mix up. I think we should maybe downgrade the car a little bit. Never mind the fancy clothes, and let's get into some really good food, because, what are we doing with that stuff? But it's all about,
Right.
The appearance.
Have you seen the new E-Class Mercedes? Oh, beautiful.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Come on.
Yeah. And you're in it all day long, so get a nice car.
18 speakers.
But don't go to some fast food joint and
While
think
you're
it's
in
good
it.
for you.
Right.
I mean, it's like, hey, like, let's be realistic, and
Right.
maybe you don't have to get the fancy new rims. You can just bypass that and get some exotic protein.
Right.
Again, it's like a prioritization of what's important. Like, where do you put sleep? Where do you put your diet? Where do you put your training? Where do you what in the priority of existence? What's important? And I think that a lot of what goes on is that people have their value systems are a little whacked, and the priorities are a little whacked. They're putting the value and the priorities on certain things that for me, I think it's like, at the end, when you look back, it's like, so what? But this other stuff is, this could be the things, these other things could be the things that make it so you don't spend the last, couple years of your life in a hospital taking more prescription meds than they even have names for, running feeling like crap, not able to do anything. So, we don't know what it's going to do for our longevity. We know what it does for the quality of our life at this moment, and how it makes us feel, and how we perform, emotionally, sexually, physically, sports wise. I mean, we can look at these things and see the outcome of the result of this kind of behavior. And so, again, I think it's, you just got to decide what you want, and what's important. But one thing is for sure is you can't avoid that. You're going to breathe air, you're going to drink water, you need food, you need sleep. I mean, these are just some certain biological facts that we all are subjected to living on Earth. And it's like, if you got some other trick that I don't know of, let me know, and I'll look at it and consider it. But right now, I'm only going with what I know, which is how it is. Like, how is it? And this is how it is, and this is how it's been. And so, I think that that's the shift that I would like to see happen. Would be that people would kind of reevaluate, their priorities, and be like, hey, sleeping is really important and really good, and and we do it a third of our life, so it must mean something. You know what I mean? This other thing, food, this other thing, health, training, working out, these are all movement. I mean, this is all, this is directly correlated to performance. Like, you want to be better at what you do. You want to, all these things, this is it. It's right in front of you. It's, everybody's looking for a magic pill. Take the pill, and then, and unfortunately, the fact is that every single thing that is all of the most beneficial things are all stressful. There's a certain level of stress that it has to do with them. And whether it's the stress of the difficulty of trying to find what you need to eat because you're trying to eat good, or the workout that you want to benefit from has to have a level of stress in it. Now, there's ways to be less harmful than others, right? The closer we are to nature, the more we move naturally, these are things that protect us. But we're just trying, I see a lot of hacking, like everybody's trying to hack their way through. I think you can use hacking to support existing habits that are healthy, but I don't think you can avoid the work. Right. You can't hack your way through the work. It's just, and you know what? And even if you can, what good is that anyway? At the end of the day, what are you going to do? It's like idle hands are the devil's playground. It's like, you give you the freedom to do what? To mess up more? It's like, come on, we might as well. If you're going to busy yourself with this stuff that we're designed to do anyway.
Seinfeld has a great joke about, he's like, he's like, when you take away the movies and you take away dinners, life's long. He's like,
Exactly.
we actually have a lot of time.
By the way.
Exactly.
When you take away these things, these little these little square electronic devices. I mean, you start looking around, it's like we're having less and less to do. You know, they say when we hunted and gathered, it took us 36 hours a week to do what we needed to do to survive. Now it's like 70-hour weeks and people can barely pull it off, and we still don't have any time. Right. It's like, but yet we become more sophisticated and never been more. It's never been easier to live and survive, but yet we even have even less time. So it's like maybe we're better off just hunting and gathering.
Hey y'all, this is Donna from the Curious Ad Department. I'm just here with a quick little promotion for y'all, so enjoy it, and we're gonna get right back to that crazy little Josh Peck host of ours. Anyway, care of, guys. What's it about? Well, back to school time means you're always on the go, shuffling kids to practices and study groups, and not having much time to devote to staying healthy. Care of can make taking care of yourself this autumn easy, with personalized vitamin and supplement packs perfect for on the go, so you're going to support your body with an extra health boost and vitamins you need to stay in shape after summer. And, back to school season, man, it's stressful. You got to take care of yourself. Care of makes it easy to get back on the health kick in a convenient and, dare I say, fun way. Combat stress, stay healthy by adding some supplements for energy, stress, and sleep to your routine. And whether we like it or not, it's important. We got to take care of ourselves. We got to be good to us so we can be good to others, right? Care of.
So, what was it like growing up a white guy in Hawaii?
If you know anything about racial tension, I mean, it's. I just watched Spike Lee's new movie the other night, and and all that racial divide that.
No worries.
All the racial divide that the humans have. It's. I grew up in a racially tense environment, and listen, a lot of people have experienced worse than I'll ever know. But the fact is that I understand what it's like to be discriminated against and to be hated because of the way you're born and all these kind of fundamental foundational aspects of racism, and I experienced it personally, and I mean a lot of it's what shaped me, but I can tell you as a teenager, when you're a kid growing up in it, it's not fun. It's not a fun thing. And the fact is that you have to be careful that you don't become the thing you so resent. And so I think it's something to be conscious of, that if you've ever been discriminated against, that you don't become a discriminator, and because you were a discriminatee, and it's easy to turn into to have that. And I think when it's all said and done, and I look back at my upbringing and I go, hey, listen, I'm a human from Earth, and if you're something different, then we can talk about it. But otherwise, it's like I got two hands, 2 feet, a nose, a mouth, and ears. I mean, it's like we're all, and really, basically, we all want the same thing. And so, what are we really talking about? And again, it goes back to what I said earlier. It's about fear. The people are scared, scared of the unknown, scared that and we want community, we want tribe, we want to think we're special, we're unique, and there's only us, and we're the only one, and all that stuff. Again, because that stuff is based on fear. But I know, like I said, when I was a kid, it was and I have some of the closest people in my life, some of my best friends are culturally from the side that was discriminating against me. I got Asian guys and black guys and yellow, green, pink, whatever. I got just people that are my best friends that I love like family, that stuff is it's insidious when you see it, and you can't. It's hard to understand where people can get hate, and then you realize it's perpetuated. That you really it's passed down. It's DNA downloading. I mean, you can just get you just get the DNA, man. You just literally you're born, and you can get that. You can have that stuff inside of you, and unless nurtured correctly and put in the proper environment, it manifests itself, and it's one of the human conditions. Back to what I said, the humans, they do all kinds of funny things.
But do you think if you weren't who you are and you were just, a guy in his 50s, surfer who grew up in Hawaii, would you, going back for 6 months a year, would you get static from the locals still, or you would just be known amongst your friend groups and they would vouch for you and there would just be a certain level
Well, I can still get static right now.
Really?
I mean, yeah, oh yeah.
No
yeah.
way.
Well, you don't ever become unwhite.
Right. That's a good point.
You don't unwhite yourself.
Right.
You don't unblack yourself. You don't become something different than what you are, and you just go down the wrong turn in the neighborhood, and for you to think everybody would know you, that was your first mistake.
Right.
So I would never ever put myself in a position where I would expect people first of all to respect me. It's funny because it's a lot of the altercations that we have are always based about respect. Oh, the guy was disrespectful. Didn't respect me.
It's such a big thing in the surf community.
Well, in the world.
In the world.
In the world.
Yes.
I mean, it's all in the hood. It's the same thing. Oh,
Right.
the guy didn't respect me. Wasn't respecting me. Like da da da. And so but I have a saying. Act respectfully and get respected.
Right.
Act respectfully. Not get respected and act respectfully. I'm talking about act respectfully first, then get respect. And so in a way, I think if you come in like that and you come in never thinking that someone should know you, always being realistic about what you are, then you're never surprised. Then when somebody does something to you, you're like, yeah, no problem. Like,
Right.
I got no problem with it. And yeah, you might have some giant monster friend of yours that come over and just go, crush the guy because the guy wasn't respectful to you, and but I think for me, I'm always a realist that way. Like I never would demand that I be respected or something like that. Listen, I will say that the influence that being a minority and being a white guy in Hawaii growing up had on me, as far as that drive that I have. I think I had the drive. It was just like where I aimed it. It was kind of like, oh yeah, okay, well then you might not like me, but you'll respect me. And if you don't you might not even respect me, but you'll be like in awe of me maybe, because I might be willing to do things that you're incapable of doing. And then you might be like, you might not even want to respect me, but at the end you'll just by default, you'll be like, yeah, I guess you went a little higher than I did on that cliff jump, or whatever it was. So it was, and I think that, listen, I love the definition of that, how defining that is. I love that defining thing of, it leaves opinions, it leaves judgment, it leaves everything away. It's just like, hey, you just do this thing and you're on this thing that no one else does. It kind of just sets you alone. Like at a certain point, you're even if somebody doesn't dig it, they don't have to. You're that alone gives you, I think, a confidence that whatever comes down, you're capable of facing it. Whether or whether you're not, you're gonna face it. And it's not like you haven't been there before. So I think that's a big part of it. I think it's I would always be a realist when it comes to knowing what I am. I'm never gonna think I'm not what I am, and at the end of the day, I'm proud of what I am. So that's the biggest thing. I think when people aren't proud of what they are, I think that becomes an issue when you're trying to fit in. Once you realize you don't fit in, then you're good. Then it's like then you quit trying, and then you start to fit in. Actually,
Right.
Then you actually fit in at that point, because you don't care about when you need to and you're trying to fit in. That's again back to what we spoke about, filling that hole. You're trying to
Right.
fill that hole, and you think by fitting in, the hole's going to be filled. You're going to fit in, and then the skill's going to be that big void. You're going to be like, I was spending all that time trying to fit in, and then that big void came along, and then when you just release it, and listen, you have a hard enough time just keeping the people that you're in the circle with good. You keep your family good, you keep your friends good. That in itself has enough work for a lifetime. That if
But does that, like, for me as an outsider who's only surfed, maybe 20 times in my life, when I go, and you see it like at certain basketball courts and whatnot, but like surfing specifically, when I go out, there's so much posturing and, like I'll go surf in Venice with a friend of mine, and it's just like, I realize that it's locals only, and you were all Z-boys, or you want to say you all knew Tony Alva, and it's like, guys, like, can we do, like, I'll respect, I won't, steal a wave, I'll stay out of your way, you get first dibs, but like at some point, can we end this game we're playing here? Like, sometimes it just feels a little extra, right?
yeah, and
Posturing.
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, I mean, I always used to say a lot of it had to do with the fact that there wasn't, enough surf. Right. There wasn't enough waves. There's not enough waves. There's not enough. But some of the heaviest, and it's connected to a deeper thing. It's connected to a tribal thing. It becomes a very primitive tribal
Sapiens,
thing
yeah.
and it becomes, to the pecking order too, like a pecking order, and some of these things that are a necessity. I've been listening to a lot of Jordan Peterson's work lately, and he was talking about like how, in The Simpsons, how like the bully is so important at the pool, at the school, because in the Simpsons version of who the bully is, where his dad's gone, this and but he creates this certain structure that is a necessity. Otherwise, we just have a bunch of whining crybabies, in the thing. And I'm not saying bullying. I'm just mean like that the certain pecking order, the way it's established, is the structurally is biology. It's a biology thing, and but there is a lot of dialogue in the lineup that is, I always say that women and children aren't safe in the lineup. It's like there's a real issue out there, and listen, a lot of it is because and I always remind everybody, I go, well, just remember, it's not out there. They bring it from the land. Right. So when guys come into the lineup that are unhappy or edgy or doing their thing, that's just their frustration that they bring from shore. It's not out there in the water. They brought it. So they bring that stuff to the water. The water doesn't have it. It's not there. So the fact is that these people that have these issues these are issues that they're bringing. So that it's actually personal issues that they have that is manifesting itself in an environment where they have this luxury to be able to say what they want and act how they want, because there's a certain lawlessness when you're in the sea, right? That you can't, things you can do in the ocean and things that happen in the ocean are different than
like road rage, almost like shit you would never do if you were face to face with someone.
Of course not.
Right.
Of course not. But somehow in the water they get away with being that way and doing that, and and again, it comes back to a tribal thing, a communal thing. I like there's all these other it's manifesting itself, but. Listen, in Hawaii, pecking orders are a necessity in order to keep organization. Like people go, I'm like, yeah, but in a real lineup, when it's for real, it's in the betterment of everybody's interest that like, hey, listen, the best surfers get priority, and then right after them or with them is the biggest. So the toughest, so it's the best surfers and the toughest guys. Those guys get all the best waves, and then there's a trickle down effect from that. And then beginners are on the side, watch out because you're dangerous and you're going to hurt somebody. And
sure,
so it's like
that's me.
But I'm just saying. But there's a necessity to do that. But there's a lot of petty stuff that goes on in lineups when there's only talking and there's no physical thing. As soon as there's any kind of physical altercations, then a lot of that talking disappears and it becomes a lot more structured. There's a lot more structure in it. I mean, listen, I grew up in those environments. I grew up in, there wasn't a lot of talking, there was head knocking. So
Yeah.
it was like, and it was pretty clear. It was pretty defined. It was, you weren't surprised if you dropped in on the one guy that you knew that was the
Gonna
head
make you
knocker.
pay
He
for
might
it.
be jumping on top of you. Like, so don't act like, wow, that was out of,
Message received.
yeah.
Yes, everyone, this is an advertisement. It's coming at you raw and real, and let's do it. Have you heard of Simple Contacts? Well, it's just the most convenient way to renew your contact lens prescription and reorder your brand of contacts from anywhere in minutes instead of heading to the doctor year after year just to renew your prescription for something you wear every day. You can do it on your own time and terms in just a few minutes. This is vision care for the 21st century, no big deal. There are a million things demanding your time, and contact lenses, they just shouldn't be one of them. And Simple Contact's vision test is self-guided, takes 5 minutes. Think of how much time you can save compared to making an appointment, going to the eye doctor, taking time off, etc. It is designed by ophthalmologists, and a licensed doctor reviews every test, so you can skip the office visit, but not the care. The reviews speak for themselves. Like, we got thousands, so it's crushing it. And Simple Contacts has all the brands and types of lenses you're familiar with. And the vision test is only $70, so come on. So look, for my listeners, my people, my number ones, we've got a $20 offer for you if you go to Simple Contacts at simplecontacts.com/curious. Enter my code Curious at checkout. That's $20 off your contacts at simplecontacts.com/curious. Enter promo code Curious. Boom. What and of course, as comfortable as you are to talk about it, like I never knew my dad, and once I got to a certain age, I had lost my opportunity to meet him because he passed away when I was 26. And I had read a quote of yours where you had met your dad later in life in your 20s, and it sort of, it didn't reveal anything. It sort of cemented the fact that you were okay with not knowing him. What was that experience like for you? I'm interested because I have my own growing up without that father figure.
Well, I think in your situation, I can't speak for you, but I know that you probably, because you didn't meet him, that you thought you missed something. But if you,
I don't actually.
yeah,
like
well, then
to
there
your
you
point.
go. Yeah.
I just figured.
Well, if they're not there, what you realize too is, I think for him, I think it was more like he wanted to maybe try to, redeem himself through kind of establishing a relationship. But I felt like, hey, listen, you already had 20-something years to come and participate. You never did. And, listen, it's a domestic. I always describe domestics as something that's difficult to, to be involved in, and you only know if you're actually in it. It's like, it's one of those things that maybe, hey, you never know. Our moms could have had a big part of why we never saw them, because our moms weren't exactly helping them see us and all that. There's just all those details. And, when I met my birth father, I realized that we really had very little in common, because we had no experiences together, other than we had DNA physical attributes that were similar, but we had no experiences together. And why does a child love his adopted parents more than his own parents once he's been raised by them? Because they raised him. And so they were there when he was sick, and they were there when on his birthday, and they were there when in all these important moments. And so at the end of the day, they've developed a relationship that brings those emotions and those feelings. And when you don't, and you're not there, then you can't expect to have that kind of depth of relationship, because you realize that, like, listen, you have, as well as I do, when you have friends of yours that you've known since the first grade.
Right.
These are friends of yours. You've had since the first grade, you've known them. You have this unspoken connection with these people, the deepness, history, experiences, deep. like that you don't even have to talk, and you have this kind of thing. You can just be together, and somehow those experiences that you both shared together are kind of molding. They're molded together, like just being together. You don't need to even, and then you can bring them up and talk about them. And when you have, and in my case, because I didn't know my father and never saw him that until I was 20 something years old, that I really didn't have anything in common. Like we couldn't go, hey, remember the time, da da da, and not that we even needed to say that, but that it didn't exist, and so it brought a lack of depth to the relationship, because of that, because it didn't exist, because there was no time together, no nothing to pull from. So
it's funny, people say to me, and it's always people who have had a great father or a present father, and they're like, when he was alive, how have you not met him? Aren't you curious? You should do this. And much to your point, and my dad also was 60 when he was with my mom, so at this point he's like in his 80s, and I was like, I had gone through a really challenging part of my life and come out of it like a better man, and I was in my mid-20s, and I felt as though I was like, I've been through the hard part. I became a man without him. I know what he gets. Like a good dude who doesn't need anything from him. Yeah. And like, but what do I get? Like, we're not going to play catch. Yeah. Like we missed it. And so I never had that deep need to really, and I also, in a way of forgiving him, because he had a family and kids, and I imagine a wife that, had no idea I existed. Yeah. And I know how the smallest infraction, I pay for it immediately. You learn that in adulthood, right? Like we are a witness to our bad behavior, so we don't get away with anything. And I was like, to have lived your life with this secret and taken it to your deathbed, that must have been tough. Yeah. I couldn't do it. Yeah. So it gave me like perspective on my relationship with him. Yeah.
Well, and I believe we probably have a mechanism because obviously we're not the first people that have ever been born that didn't know their dads. And so in a way, I bet that's happened so often over evolution that I think we probably have a mechanism that is not triggered by when you don't have one, in order to make it so that it's not stressful on you, so that it's not something that handicaps you or burdens you. So I bet we have an actual design in our system to be like, okay, no problem. Like, so that's why when it comes time, you're like, it doesn't even matter. I don't even care. Like, like you said, I'm already a man. I'm good. I'm down the road. I don't need to, and I'm not concerned about helping you redeem yourself to yourself. I'm good. I don't need it. And it's like you said, I'm not, what do I get out of it? But even more so, but why you're going to subject me into trying to help you get, redeem yourself? Like, you should have done that. That's your job. I don't need to right. I don't need to do that. I have enough to do. I'm a young man. Yeah. It's like, I got a whole life to do it. And then you can decide what kind of man you want to be. And so in a way, I think, part of what has contributed, and I'd still say I'm selfish, but part of what's contributed to me being the father that I am was part of it has to do with being, first of all, not having my birth father as my father, and then having, a stepfather, and then seeing what kind of father he was, and then being like, hey, what kind of father do I want to be? And maybe I want to be a little bit like that father and a little bit like this other father, and maybe some of these other people that I respect, I'll be like them too, and then try to become the father that you want to be, or that you would have liked to have had you had one, or whatever that is. And, I think it all has its own variation of burden, but at the end, I fortunately, there's no right or wrong way. There's no like, it's not like, oh, if you don't have a dad, you're not going to be okay. And it's not like if you have a dad, you're going to be okay. Exactly. So, let that stuff fall where it may, but you just have to go off of what you have, what you got, and deal with the tires that are on the car that you're driving. And I think that's an interesting. It's been an interesting an interesting process, walking, being a dad, and then, I think what's as you get older, when you're young, the younger you are, the more kind of final everything is. Everything's so clear and defined for you. They have the saying, quick, hurry up and hire your children while they still know everything. But the fact is, it's so clear, and I'm this way, and this is that way, and the world's like this. And then as you go, you're kind of like, oh, maybe it's not like that. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it's not. And, and by at the end, you're just kind of like, or not the end, but I'm just saying, but by the time you've come down the line a ways, you're kind of like, you have a tendency to be a little more, just a little more, less judgmental, at least I find myself less judgmental. More clear knowing on what you want, but less clear on, what the right or wrong way to go about it is.
Did you find that I found for me, and sometimes to an unhealthy way, but throughout my life, I was sort of collecting father figures because I didn't have a specific guy to do that for me. And so whether it was like I had a big brother from the Big Brother Foundation, or specific types of guys who I felt like I could look up to and learn from. And at times, and something that was revealed was that I was putting unhealthy expectation on them because they weren't my dad.
Yeah.
But that, I even see it now with like my wife's dad is a former athlete, just like an incredible father and a guy. And there's so much that I'm so attracted to what he has as a man, because he's just raised a great family. Do you find that you did that growing up to some extent?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think it's natural to be looking out there and looking at other men as examples of the kind of man you want to be, or the kind of man you don't want to be. More often than not, it's really looking at what you don't want to be than what you want to be. And I don't know if that's because there's more men acting like you don't want to be, or if there's less men acting like you want to be. I'm not sure which is going on, but something out there's happening where, sometimes some of these best examples is now how not to be, not how to be. But I definitely had, men that I looked up to, that I admired, and I did similar kind of things that you did, which is, putting unfair and unrealistic expectations on them and then being disappointed. It's a little bit of a setup, that process of, kind of putting the expectations, your expectations on someone and then being disappointed. Part of it is because expectations are always unrealistic, and you don't know what it's like to be in their shoes. But there was definitely a lot of men that I looked at, and families that I looked at, that I admired, that I was like, I would like to emulate that in the future. The fact is that we really are monkey see, monkey do.
Right.
We're creatures that observe and behave, and it's it's hard to be the monkey that doesn't see and does, but the seeing and doing is very common. And that's how we learn. And part of our evolution has been that we looked at the, and then we evolve, and then as we evolve, we look at the next level of it, and then we watch that and we learn, and so we're able to learn off of that. But the definitely looking at men, and admiring them and wanting to, use attributes that they had and that you respected, and being able to decipher through that, being able to decipher just, hey, take that attribute from that one and take this attribute from him and take that other one from them, and, and then use those. And then you become your own unique self, but pulling from those and looking at success, like what is the behavioral trait of a successful relationship? Okay, well, that's one of them. That loyalty. Okay, that's one. Monogamy. Okay, that's another one, or whatever. Just choosing those traits that you see successful and then emulating those. I think that's that we should do that anyway. I think even if we had a perfectly good household and a perfectly great family, I think you still should do that, because no one man can be all things.
Right. Okay, last 1.5 questions because I don't want to keep you here all day.
Yeah.
What's going through your mind, or is nothing going through your mind when you're riding a massive wave?
Ask that question a lot, think about that answer a lot. I think first of all, some of the science, just to enlighten us all, which is that when you're in fight or flight, you're using a different part of your brain that really isn't great at memorization. And so you have a limited recollection of things when you're in fight or flight. And the more intense the fight or flight, the more limited the recollection. And so when I look back at a lot of the surfing, I don't have a lot of real detailed. I have little snapshots of moments, but that's just because, you know, that's what it takes in order to do the thing. Is this, kind of all focus on doing, not on recording doing, and so, but definitely all consuming. There's no other blockage. There's no other,
Yeah.
nothing,
Not thinking
no.
about your Facebook
I
or your
promise.
account
You're
balance.
not thinking about nothing.
Nothing.
Except what you're doing, and then implementing, and then pulling information from past experiences to implement decisions, given what you know, and in there somewhere, because if you're not if you're not if your memory is cut kind of down and limited from those situations, and what memories are you pulling? But it's always about survival, making it, and so total focus, and and no distraction, and then just everything on high alert. Everything's on, the front line. It's the hearing, the sight, again, people go, is there a silence? And I think there is a silence. I think sound becomes a distraction too when you're in those kind of real focused. Things slow down, and you have, and because of and as being in film, I tell people, I go, well, how do you make slow mo? And you speed the film up, right? That's how you make slow motion. Right. So in a way, the way we slow things down is speed up assessment. So when your brain speeds up what's going on, that's how we get slow motion. That's where slow motion comes from. But that means everything's heightened, right? So it means you have to be absorbing stuff faster, and that's where the slowing down comes in. That's where the decision making comes in, and I describe big wave riding like the ultimate game of improv, because it's everything it can do. There's no two rides the same ever, and you're on a moving surface that can do all kinds of stuff. So you're always having to, you're always, but yet looking ahead and feeling what's behind. I told somebody, I go, the one thing about big wave riding is it's one of the few times in life that you know what's happening behind you by what's happening in front of you. And I can look at the water in front of me where I'm going, and I know exactly what it's doing in the back of me. I don't need to turn around and look. I know. So I know if I'm in a spot where the wave's going to land on me, I already know that's coming. And that's happening from being able to know what's happening in front of you, which is kind of, I don't know if it's a metaphor for life or something, but it's kind of like you'll know what's happening behind, what's happened behind you by, what's happening in front of you, and it's, for me, listen, this is the kind of the culmination of everything that I've done when I do that, and it's it takes all of me in a way that nothing that I'm, and part of it is because the threat, you're under threat, you're under the threat of, and I think that's where I connect with military people, because of I have a lot of friends that are in the military, and I can kind of communicate and have an understanding with them, even though I've never, been in battle and being shot at, that I have that threat of,
Yeah, unrelenting, uncompromising.
Yeah.
And whenever you've been held under the water for an unfair amount of time.
Which doesn't take long at maximum heart rate.
Who are you talking to anyone? And by that I mean, are you talking to God? Are you talking to your mom? Or are you just like, I'm going to solve this problem? Like, there's no thought that I'm going to be sane under here.
Listen. Usually you're having a conversation with yourself because you're the only one there with you at that point. I've been rescued at sea, and I asked God to please rescue me, and I told him that I'd turn from my sinful ways. That didn't last long, but the fact is that I did ask for the Almighty to please come down and, scoop me up, and
I've done that on drugs before.
Yeah. It doesn't matter how you get there. You just know the feeling. But but yeah, when you're down deep in the bottom of the ocean, it's a lonely place, and it's it's nice to get to the surface. It's always nice to come back, and there's an aspect of submission that happens that normally gets you through it. I think that's the thing that it teaches you more than anything is that submitting and submission is where you succeed. And it's kind of, again, the ocean being the teacher, there's an irony in that. There's an irony in submitting to creating success, to win. That's just counterintuitive, because everything we know and everything that we're taught is that you aggress and then you win, and this is, you aggress here and you lose. So we know that quickly. There's a time to aggress, and at moments you will make an aggressive movement, but there's only through submission you'll know when to aggress. But it's the submission that gives you the knowledge to know when to aggress. That without that submission, you wouldn't know when to go and what to do, and then sometimes it's just a fight for survival. Just like, got to get to the top where the air is, because there's none under there.
Yeah. Thank you so much for doing this. This has been awesome.
My pleasure. Aloha.
That was it. That was Laird Hamilton. This was my podcast, and now this is you. And let's get away from Laird and me, and it's not all about us, because yes, people like Laird and I, we've done incredible things. Yeah, we've surfed giants, 80-foot waves, and yeah, we do incredible workouts underwater where we hold our breath for, minutes on end while lifting boulders and doing incredible compound exercises. Oh wait, that's just Laird. Nevertheless, you, whoever you are listening to this thing, you are of value, and what you do matters. And even in the most subtle and nuanced ways, because I know that you care. And then when you do things, you put your all into it. And maybe it's not like the shiny, exciting things that people get to see and that people take notice of. Maybe the things you do are the things that keep the world working. You know who you are. You know who you are. And I think that's dope. That's all I got. Have a great week. Bye.